Welcome to another trip down the Bourbon Road with your hosts, Jim and Mike. So grab a glass of your favorite bourbon and kick back.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jim Shannon.
And I'm Mike Hyatt.
And this is the Bourbon Road. And today, Mike, it's another Craft Distillery Monday. Definitely not a craft distillery.
Well, it's craft distillery one time.
Yeah. I mean, probably the number one selling whiskey in the world.
It is the number one. So you're exactly correct. They sell just a little bit down there in Lynchburg, Tennessee.
So we said every now and then we got a big boy. So this is a big boy.
Yeah, I think in 2017 they sold 16.1 million cases of whiskey out of there. That's 38 million gallons of whiskey.
Oh my goodness.
I don't even know what that is in barrels, but it's a lot.
So we've had 200 and a dozen or so episodes and never had Jack on the show.
Never.
But this week we're going to have it on twice.
We are. Well, before we get to this, Wednesday's episode, listeners, you want to pay attention. Really special Kentucky girl on, Taylor Austin Dye.
Pretty amazing.
She got some pipes on her.
Yes, she does.
The country Adele.
Yeah.
She can belt it out, right?
She can, and she can drink some whiskey too.
Yeah, I think me and you were both shocked when we made the pours. We had pretty good sized pours, and me and you went to sip on it, and she shot that sucker.
She threw it back.
She threw it back like a young lady should. You don't want to miss that episode, listeners. Very special. Her music will resonate with you, so make sure you catch that show. But now back to our review.
That's right. So we've got Jack Daniel's.
Yep.
We've got the Jack Daniel's 80 proof release here.
80 proof.
Yeah. So this is the bottle that this is the house that Jack built, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people that listen to our show will resonate with this. They've all probably tried it. We've both tried it. I don't know how many Jack and Cokes I've drank in my life, but I've drank a lot of them over the years.
Not a lot of Jack Straights, though. A little bit. Usually turning a bottle up, right?
Yeah. This is a big boy bottle right here.
So we got a handle.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, little more than half full right now.
Yeah,
I've drank from this a couple times.
Well, I think it's about darn time we focus a little attention on this, and we are doing it this week because we're also having Taylor on Wednesday, and we want to kind of focus a little bit on Jack and talk a little bit about Tennessee whiskey. And you've got some tidbits for us there, don't you?
I do. So 1875, it started out in Lynchburg, Tennessee. And I bet a lot of people don't know this about old Jack Daniel. Jack is his nickname. His name was Jasper. Jasper Newton Jack Daniel was his actual name and stuff.
Jasper was it's not a name that's used a lot anymore, is it?
No, that's an old country boy right there.
Country boy name, yeah.
I think there's a Jasper on Lonesome Dove.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an old school name right there.
So 1875, you said?
Somewhere about that. They can't quite figure it out now. Was he really the founder? Kind of was, but he learned how to make whiskey from his first master distiller. His master distiller, his name was Nathan Green, and everybody would know him as Uncle Nearest.
Now, I've heard that story. So Uncle Nearest was the man who taught Jack how to make whiskey, right?
Yeah, and got a great story. And in Jack Daniel's biography, he actually wrote about him. So you know how much Uncle Nearest meant to him to write about him, especially at that time. Different part of the world down there back then. So that shows you how much he really meant to him to write about him. Now there's an Uncle Nearest whiskey out there.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have to review them shortly. Brown-Forman owns Jack Daniel's now. That says a lot. So when we say Brown-Forman, we actually are talking about Woodford Reserve, Old Forester, They got a couple other brands out
They
there.
do. They've got an Irish whiskey, Slane. They've got a Scotch brand as well. So tequila brands, it's a bigger company than you might think. But the overall parent company of Brown-Forman.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Tennessee whiskey for a minute, Jim.
Sure.
The great controversy that we usually don't talk about too much, do we? By U.S. law, it's a bourbon.
Yes. So it meets all the criteria to be a bourbon. Now, some people say they put it through that maple charcoal. They're flavoring it. Well, no, they're charcoal. They're filtering it through there, and they're doing it while it's white dog before it ever goes in a barrel.
Adds no color.
Yep.
No flavoring.
Yep.
What it does is whiskey, on that bite you got, it has these, if you looked at I guess scientists, you know more about this than I do, but there's these little, almost like those little barbs in like pepper. It'll grab a hold of your tongue, and that's that spice you get, right? Mm-hmm. But it filters some of that out and cuts those or smooths them out a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, most whiskeys that are made in this world, most bourbons that are made in this world go through some sort of filtration before they're put in the barrel, right? Or they go through some sort of filtration as they come out of the barrel, because everybody wants to get out the chunks. They want to make sure that what goes into the barrel is pure and clean liquid, right?
Yeah, a lot of them say charcoal mellowed.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, there's a Heaven Hill that says charcoal mellowed, right?
Yeah.
So just understand that process of the Lincoln County process is what it's called, which is where they run the white dog, or the new make gets run through the column of maple charcoal, does not invalidate the fact that it's a bourbon.
Yeah, even if you looked at the NAFTA free trade agreement with, I believe, Mexico and Canada, even Canada says that Tennessee whiskey would be classified as a bourbon.
But they don't want to be called a bourbon.
Now, Tennessee doesn't, and they have a law down there in Tennessee.
And so Jack Daniel's chooses not to be called a bourbon. They choose to be called a Tennessee whiskey. And what they do to their whiskey, other people outside of Tennessee cannot do.
Sure.
So it's their way to say, hey, we're special.
And a lot of distilleries down there do it that way. Our good friends down at Leaper's Fork, they've got a charcoal mellowing system, and it's pretty neat. It looks like a giant, biggest sprinkler head I've ever seen before. And it takes quite a while to do that. So how long their column is they use to do that in?
Is it some? I mean, no, I don't know, but I understand it's many feet, right? 12 to 20 feet or something like that. Yeah. It's a big, huge column of charcoal.
Yeah, I think that's a neat process, and it does smooth it out a little bit. Well, heck, we've talked about it a little bit. Everybody knows this. This is a rye bourbon, right? A rye Tennessee whiskey, I guess.
Yep.
It's more 51% corn. Then they would add the rye, and then their malted barley to it too. It is a sour mash. Now, we've talked about that on the show before. Some people, that are not whiskey drinkers will be like, well, it tastes sour. No, it doesn't taste sour. Sour mash is the process they use. So they'll take that spent grain and put it back in to their next fermentation to kind of start that up, right? And that consistency is what makes their whiskey taste the same every time.
That's right. It's called backset, right? It's that a little bit of that last batch goes into the next batch, just like if you're making sourdough bread.
Yep.
But sourdough bread is a little sour.
It is.
All right, Mike. Well, let's check this out. What do you say?
Cheers.
Cheers. Very familiar.
Oh, yeah.
Very familiar. Brings back, well, I won't say good memories. Brings back memories.
Now, this is actually some of the first whiskey I ever drank in my life.
Is it?
I remember my stepdad got I guess it's probably a Christmas gift or something, or he'd been at the company for so many years, and they gave him a bottle and a glass. And I remember he hid it out inside of his workshop, and me and my little brother would go out there and sip on it.
The nose is kind of simple, but it's nice. It's caramel and a little bit of oak and pepper. Not too much, but no, not overly. It doesn't have too much alcohol on the nose, I guess.
Yeah, it's not very, but it's 80 proof too. I get a little bit of honey black tea on this.
I was thinking tea actually went, because I already took a sip. As soon as I took a sip of it, I was like, oh, that kind of reminds me of tea a little bit. So sorry I got ahead of you, but
yeah, I think that like Earl Grey with honey on it. Maybe a little bit of orange zest. Well, heck, you're drinking. Cheers. Let's taste this thing.
Cheers. Yeah, it goes down real easy. 80 proof, very smooth, no sharp edges, like you said. Kind of doesn't have a lot going on.
No, it's not viscous or anything. I mean, there's a reason why this gets drank with Coke right here a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I still do get that sweet tea, that honey tea, a little bit of brown sugar in there, I guess.
It's got just enough bite to let you know it's a real whiskey, but it is smooth. I don't feel like when I'm sipping on this straight, I don't feel like it's something that'll really punch through in a cocktail. But let's face it, this is in every well in the world. I mean, it's making cocktails like, well, that's where all the millions of gallons are going, right? Cocktails and highballs. And
I don't think they care what you put it in.
Of course they don't. They're perfectly happy to have you make whatever drink you want to out of it.
Now, do you know their DSP is not 7?
What's their DSP?
I think it's like 12 or 13, but that was their original. The story goes that was their original DSP, and they couldn't get that DSP back whenever they started back up after Prohibition.
Oh, I thought an old number 7 had something to do with the batch number or something.
That's what I read today. I did a little bit of reading. I guess there's a couple of different stories about it, but old number 7. I mean, it's been around for a minute.
So have you been to the distillery?
Me and Viv did take a trip down there. Man, it's been a minute ago. We took my daughter down there with us, and we got to go to the little spring there and the statue of Jack Daniels. Have you been down there?
I haven't been. I need to go.
It's a nice trip. There's a little Air Force base down there that has a campground and lake and stuff, and we'd stayed down there, and it's not that far away, and that whole town is whiskey, right? Everything's whiskey there. Now, They say there's only 381 people there or something of the population of Lynchburg, Tennessee, but it's like 6,000 or 7,000 really.
Now, they were a dry county, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they still a dry county?
I don't know. I was on the military base. No military base is dry.
That's true. That's true. I was just curious because I knew at one time I'd heard that, Jack Daniels was actually in a dry county down there, so you couldn't actually drink it. You can make it, but you can't drink it. But I guess those things have probably changed.
Well, for a while, did you know that Jack Daniels, because Tennessee went into Prohibition before anybody else did. And we've talked about that before on the show. I think it was 1910 is when they went into that. So they had to move their distilling to Birmingham, Alabama, and St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, really?
Now, none of that whiskey, though, that was produced there was sold because it was bad.
Oh, really? Okay.
It didn't meet the standards that's what I read today. And I thought that was pretty neat that they tried, but it kind of failed. And Tennessee didn't go back, I believe, until 1938.
Yeah, Tennessee was the first state to adopt Prohibition and one of the last states to give it up, right?
Yeah, that's weird, though.
I know.
That's the weirdest thing. People down there love to drink.
I think probably there was it's a Southern battle that took place, back at that time, and we're still unraveling Prohibition today. Even today, we have all these laws that are still remnants of Prohibition, the 3-tier system, the other things like that. And it's just going to take a couple of generations for that stuff to disappear. But I do see a trend. I see a trend of those things starting to go away, getting to be easier.
Well, I think, and I know our whiskey friends are going to hate me saying this, but I believe that microbreweries kind of paved the way for distilleries in all these states with beer. And, there's something to be said about
and probably that. Wineries too, right?
Wineries and microbrews.
Those things that have lower alcohol content, it's a little bit easier for people to buy into that, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, anywhere we go across the United States, you hear people say that Colorado, Texas, out in Oregon, the battle that they've had to fight with laws. Even here in Kentucky today, we're still dealing with some of that stuff.
We are. So now Kentucky is a shipping state, which means that distilleries in Kentucky can now ship their product to customers, which is great. You come to the Bourbon Trail, you visit a distillery, you don't have to figure out how to pack all those bottles into your suitcase anymore. The distilleries will ship them out to you.
Not to every state, because you got control states like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, right? That the state controls everything there. So all the liquor goes to the state, and then they put it in their stores, and
it'll take a while, but it's getting better.
Hurts the consumer.
Yeah.
The consumer is the one that pays, I believe, in the distilleries, because they're not able to ship to those states. It kind of opened the doors a little bit. And like you said, it's going to take generations.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, hey, Jack Daniels is still good whiskey. And if you don't like their 80 proof, man, they got some single barrels that are just fabulous out there.
Yeah, their single barrels are pretty amazing. And in fact, I think, definitely when you tune in on Wednesday, you'll hear about one of those. But yeah, look, this is a great whiskey. There's nothing wrong with it. It's an 80 proof whiskey. It's smooth. It's easy to drink. There's nothing special about it. It's not going to knock your socks off, but nobody expects it to, right? They just expect to be able to grab a bottle of this, add it to some ginger ale, put it in a Coke, have a cocktail made up with it, and just move on down the road.
Man, I used to drink the hell out of some highballs.
Yeah.
Just a couple of them. And with Jack, or with usually, everybody's going to get on me about this, but I'd been known to drink just a little bit of Canadian whiskey with some ginger ale. But the same thing with Jack, they sell plenty of it. A lot of people talk about it. Frank Sinatra actually has a bottle of this in his casket with him.
He does. Yeah, I think I've heard that. I think something we ought to do in the future is we got to do Jack and Jim side by side.
Jack and Jim, compare the two.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good show. They're definitely going to be different, because that Lincoln County process definitely affects the flavor of the whiskey. It definitely has an impact on it.
I just took another good big old pour of this, and got a little bit of peanut butter on there, a little peanutty or nutty taste to that. Not almonds, but peanuts. I'm not sure where that's coming from, if it's coming from the barrels or... Yeah. I still think it's a good expression if you're looking to pour cocktails. Heck, even you sit down by the campfire, it's not going to knock your britches off. This is kind of a everyday sipper, right? It's not
going to empty your wallet either, is it?
No.
So what'd you pay for a handle of this? Do you remember?
I got to be honest with you, Jim. Somebody brought this over here.
They brought it
and left it because at one of the fires, somebody.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess a handle at about $27.
I think you're probably right on that. 27 to $30. That's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a lot of whiskey right there. That's a bottle you pull out for a lot of big event.
Hey, I did want to give a shout out to all of our roadies and other listeners who made it out to Bourbon on the Banks here just a week or so ago. And it was a great event. Really amazing. I think there were about 1,200 people attending.
Yep.
And I think 150 of them were roadies.
I think there's 150 bourbon bullshitter t-shirts out there. A big thank you to Abby, one of our listeners.
We could not have done it without him.
And Jamie, his friend, came and poured Woodinville whiskey for us all day long. Never skipped a beat. And, very educated about whiskey. Had a lot of customers coming at him about bourbon not being from Kentucky. Abby, man, you are the man. You are the master pourer of bourbon.
Rock star. He was a rock star at that event for us. He allowed us time to really have time to talk with our roadies. It was nice.
Yeah. I mean, we had roadies help us put up and tear down. Todd Ritter, Ralph Burgess was there.
Yeah.
We got to thank you guys for helping us set up and tear down. Abby was there the day before helping us.
And our wives ran the swag table.
Man, they not only ran the swag table, but they also were directing people, hey, go there to drink whiskey, go over there to sign up for the podcast and for the Bourbon Road private Facebook group, the Roadies. They were doing it all. So,
and I want to give a big shout out to Big Chief here, Mike. I mean, you put this event together. At least as far as the Bourbon Road is concerned, you secured our sponsor, you got the tent, you got all the things that went into the tent. And guys, we didn't just have a tent, we had a palace. It was huge. We had about, I don't know, I would say we averaged 40 plus people, 50 people in there at a time.
it was, I kind of get claustrophobic in crowds like that. And I was a little nervous. Somebody pinched my butt while we were in there. I'm not used to that. But people taking photos, talking to us, I thought it was a great event for us. I can't thank Diane Strong and her entire staff there at Bourbon on the Banks for letting us set up there.
Real class act.
Oh yeah.
Real class act. So if you didn't get to experience Bourbon on the Banks 2021, I'm going to ask you to get out your calendar and put it in for next year. I think it's actually going to be in August next year.
Well, there's some debate about that. So
okay, but anyway, be watching for it.
August or October, whenever it is. If you can't make the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, make Bourbon on the Banks.
It's a smaller venue.
They had 40 distilleries.
Yeah.
And it stretched along the riverbank. I don't think either one of us ever left our tent.
We didn't have a chance.
Yeah. But everybody that came said they had a great time. We actually had like 10 extra bottles there of whiskey.
The roadie bar.
So if you signed up to be a roadie or if you were a roadie, we brought some pretty special bottles.
Victor's Toasted, right?
Yep. An entire bottle. We'd barely drank any of that between me and you. And it went bye-bye quick. Bottle of Stag Junior, it went quick. Iron Root, I had brought a brand new bottle of that Harbinger.
You had the Harbinger. You had some Angel's Envy. You had, what else did we have there? Oh, we had a Horse Soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great roadie bar. And that's one of the benefits of being a roadie, actually, is that when you come to one of our events, and whether it be a bonfire event or a pouring or something like this, you're always going to find a roadie bar, right? Somewhere you can get some extra pours.
Well, I don't think anybody else did that out there. And that was just a thank you from Jim and I to say, thanks for being roadies. Thanks for supporting the podcast. And we might only do that once a year, or we'll do it more than once a year. We usually have a tasting over here at Jim's house, or we'll do a bourbon blind, which we should be doing one soon here at some point. But that's just a thank you from us to say, hey, we really do appreciate you listening to us while you're driving down the road or joining our group. Just giving us support. It does take they say it takes a village, right? And that the Bourbon Road does take a village to put on and host events and stuff. It's not one man or two men. It's an entire family that puts it on and stuff. And that's with our wives and our great friends like Abby and Todd Ritter that helped us out and getting invited to stuff like that. We talked at the Rippy House.
Yeah, that was great.
We got a tasting coming up on this next weekend.
So November the 6th, right? Saturday in Shelbyville, Kentucky at the Barrel Room. Are they sold out, Mike?
I'm not positive if they're sold out yet. So there's only 40 tickets. That's it. You're going to get 4 different pours.
And birthday bourbon is one of them.
The 2020 birthday bourbon is the main bottle, but you're going to get a 1910, a 1920. We are going to blend a 1915 there. That is a 1910 and 1920 mixed together, right?
That's right.
So really you're getting 5 pours.
Yeah.
Really, because we're going to blend those 2 bottles together.
And a little bit of history lesson, right?
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. We're going to bring the history for it. And then we're going to do the birthday bourbon. And you never can tell because our bars are overflowing with bourbon. We might bring some bottles from some of the reviews we've done from across the country and share our bourbon with you if you come out there. I think it's $50.
It's $50, and for that you get that flight of pours, and you get the sort of the walk through Old Forester.
Yep.
So and you get to hang out at sort of our stomping grounds, right? That's where we like to hang out.
Yeah, you'll get to see Main Street Shelbyville if you haven't been here before. You get to hang out with us for a while, have a couple pours with us. We'll hang out afterwards a little while too, and have a couple pours with you and chat it up. You'll have an opportunity to buy some swag there if you want to buy some swag. That's what we're going to do. You want to come check that out? We'd appreciate it. The Barrel Room would appreciate it. If you are not a bourbon drinker, if you have a spouse that wants to come along with you, they don't have to buy a tasting to sit at the bar and drink beer.
That's right. And they've got some great bourbon slushies there.
Well, I've been known to tear them bourbon slushies.
They also have wine and other things as well. But the main thing there, it's a beer place. It's a brewery.
It is a brewery. They have a really nice bourbon bar. Probably 60 to 100 bottles up on the shelves. They have some ciders if you're not into beer. For the fall season.
And every Wednesday they have 3 special bottles on Whiskey Wednesday pours, $5 a pour.
It's pretty good.
Every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
And they always have the Bourbon Road flight.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't want that, right?
That's right. Well, Mike, where can our listeners find us on social media?
You can find us on TikTok now. We got 2 videos on there.
Yeah.
We'll have some more coming up. You can find us on Twitter. I don't know how much we really put on Twitter.
We post twice a week on Twitter.
That's it. We don't really post anything else on there because there's stuff we don't talk about, and that's what kind of Twitter's for, I think.
Yeah. I think we basically post on Twitter our episode releases. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, we're on those. You'll see us on there quite often. We also have our private Facebook group, as we've been talking about the Bourbon Roadies, getting up to about 2,500 people. Get in there and join. 3 rules, Jim. That's it. That's right. You have to be 21 because this is all about whiskey, right? And you have to like bourbon because bourbon is what we focus on. And you have to play nice because we don't tolerate any rudeness. We want our listeners to get along and have a generally good time together in that room. And they do. Do. Yeah. We don't really have any issues, I think. A few pop up every now and then. And our moderators take care of them pretty quick.
Yeah, Drew, Jason, and Adam, they all take care of that stuff. Now, to kind of help out with that rudeness stuff, we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. We don't talk about social issues. We stick to whiskey in there, celebrate life.
Yeah. All right. So we do 2 shows a week. We do a short episode every Monday, like today's episode, where we take 1 bottle and we kind of dive into it and talk about it and try to give you an indication of whether or not you ought to pick it up and try it yourself. Jack Daniels, you probably already had it, but if you haven't, it's a great pour. You should go ahead and get your hands on it. There's no reason why you wouldn't be happy to have this on your bar. I think everybody should.
Sure.
We do a long episode every Wednesday where we do more of a deep dive, kind of an exploration of a guest or a series of bottles or a distillery. And, that episode usually lasts about an hour, Mike. It gets them to work and home, right?
Heck yeah. I mean, you hear us just laugh and giggle, and we have a couple of drinks in us. We get kind of giggly. So please give us a listen. So to make sure that you don't miss those episodes, though, you want to go over and hit that subscribe button at the top of your screen, check or a plus button right there. And then you know what I'm going to say, Jim. I need you to scroll on down. You hit that 5-star review. You know what happens if you don't give us that 5-star review, right? I'm going to bring this big old bottle of Jack Daniels over to your house. I'm going to release my big friend, the big bad booty daddy of bourbon. We're going to drink some Jack all night. By the end of that night, you're going to give us that 5-star review. You'll be laughing along with us. Hell, I'm going to even bring Jim with me. We'll be all giggling. So give us that 5-star review. We'd appreciate it. It opens up doors. It gets us into distilleries. It gets us nice bottles to review. You don't want to miss next week's review. We got a pretty nice new craft distillery.
Yeah, pretty exciting bottle. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy to hear about this one.
Yep.
Now, this episode's run a little long, folks. We normally don't do 30-minute long craft distillery episodes, but a lot of information we wanted to get out today. Yeah. Definitely make sure you listen to Wednesday's episode. You will not forget it. Taylor Austin Dye she's going to have your attention. She gets everybody's attention.
You know, she not many people make me tear up. My daughter, my son, my wife, maybe.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I get a little emotional. When I retired, I cried a little bit. But dang, she sang, and I started tearing up a little bit. I said, "Good
so
Lord."
You have to listen in to the very end of this episode on Wednesday. I mean, all the way to the end, guys, to the last song that takes us out, because it's something very special.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. Well, you can reach out to Mike and I. We're pretty available. You can reach out to me on email at Jim@thebourbonroad. Mike is Mike@thebourbonroad.com. Probably the best way, and we say this all the time, is to hit us up on Instagram. Hit our DMs. I'm JShannon63.
I changed my Instagram to match my TikTok.
Did you really?
Yes, because it was confusing to somebody. They sent me something and said, "Hey, why is it two different things?" So I changed it from One Big Chief. I am now Big Bourbon Chief on Instagram. Check that out. I'm on there on TikTok too, at Big Bourbon Chief. Check out me on TikTok if you would too.
Did you have to give up One Big Chief?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Can't have two accounts.
I don't know. People are going to have a problem with this. They're going to have to, it's going to be hard. All right, folks. Big Bourbon Chief. Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we would love to have you listen to both our episodes. We got another one coming out Wednesday. Make sure you tune in. Mike, what do we say every week?
We'll see you on down the Bourbon Road.